Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Before we get started, just a couple of things I'd like to go over. My name is Victor Cron. I'm a Vice President here at Keystroke, and today we'll have Ken Quigley, our President and Founder, doing the webinar on the Designer and Quicksend. So a couple of things I want to start with is any questions will be answered at the end, so please feel free to put the questions in the menu bar on the right-hand side there. And also we will, and those will be handled at the end. Also, if you do have suggestions for future webinars that you think would be an interest to a large group of people, please send those to me. Again, it's vic@kqc.ca is my email address. And the questions at the end will be only addressing Designer and the Quicksends, the topics that Ken will be covering today. And if there's other questions, we will hold them, but we won't respond to them during the webinar. So with that, it is now 3 o'clock, and Ken, why don't you take us?
Perfect. Yep, thank you, Vic. So just I want to set the scope of the webinar, because one of the nice things about ACT Marketing Automation is that there's many different parts of it. You've got the Designer, you've got landing pages, you've got surveys, you've got decision trees and all kinds of automation features. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the focus of today will be the Designer, so showing you how to use the editor, and then to do a Quicksend campaign. A lot of the people that are migrating over as part of the fall campaign are coming from their own e-marketing experience, and we thought that this would be the most relevant to them, where they're coming from, you know, either ACT e-marketing or SwiftPage e-marketing, and a lot of their workflow was centered around, you know, design and send. So we're going to show that even ACT Marketing Automation, with all its additional features, still supports that basic feature. So that will allow people to kind of, at least from a comprehension standpoint, flow a little bit more easily from the old platforms to the new platforms. Now, the first thing I want to express is that I am working in the Windows version of ACT, and I'm working in a subscriber copy of the database, and that's going to become relevant as we get a little bit later into the presentation. But one of the nice things about ACT Marketing Automation is whether you're working in a Windows client or you're working in the web client, the experience is virtually the exact same. In fact, it can be argued that if you're working off the cloud, most of the technical issues that you might have, you know, setting up on a local database are not normally present in the cloud, because those are managed by the hosting provider. So they make sure that the web streamers and that are all accurate. So it's much easier and more reliable setup. But for today's purposes, I always am a little bit untrusting of internet services as I'm doing a webinar. So we're going to be working locally on this. Okay. So the first thing that, you know, having set the scope, I want to just show you what we're going to be doing. We're not just going to be showing you the different parts of the Designer, but I'm actually going to kind of set a goal and show you where we're going to design towards. So this image that I'm bringing up on the screen is a snippet of one of our previous newsletters. So if you just quickly toggle through here, you can see different sections of it. And this contains all different components that are useful to cover in this. So we'll have the header at the beginning. We can see bullet points. We can see additional headers, images. And then we've got the use of graphics down here. And then what's really useful is kind of understanding how to break things into different columns and rows, okay? And then we've got the social media buttons down at the bottom, and we've got the unsubscribe. Okay, so this is going to be kind of our objective and what we're going to do, and we're going to make a new template. I'm not going to go to the trouble of making it look exactly the same, but at least you can see the process and the workflow. So without further ado, I am in ACT. I'm actually in the marketing automation section right now, and all that took is just clicking on here, and that gave me the immediate menu. So what I've done is I've clicked on templates, and I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to click on new template. Okay, when you click on actions, you can see new template, image library, and grid view. We're just going to click on new template for our purposes and quickly go through the options. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is name the template. So I'm just going to type in webinar. And then we see the different types. Now, for our purposes, we're only going to be focusing on marketing because these are the standard marketing templates that are associated with it. You've got landing pages. Sales are something that typically are limited to the top 2 versions of Act Marketing Automation. Specifically, I'm going to try to focus everything that is available in the professional tier. Sales is in Premier and Ultimate, okay, and typically is done for a little bit more advanced workflow, okay. So those are the 3 options there. I'm going to select marketing. And then we've got the editor, drag and drop versus WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Now, for our purposes, we're going to stay with drag and drop, and I'll tell you why. Not only is it easy and accessible to just about anyone after a brief orientation, and certainly after this webinar, but it's also guaranteed to be responsive. Okay, so you're going to be able to develop something that works and can be consumed as easily on a desktop, on a Mac, on a mobile device, tablet, or phone, regardless of the form factor, and it's all going to adjust. So we want to stick with this. Now, one thing I do want to say is that if you select drag and drop, you can convert that to WYSIWYG, but you cannot convert WYSIWYG back to drag and drop. So I'm going to suggest for the purposes of this that you stay with drag and drop, which actually does serve most of your purposes. The last one is very cool, and what we've seen here over the last number of months is a lot of additions here to the template library. So you can kind of go through here, and it gives you a little preview of all the different templates available, okay? For our purposes, we're going to select one column because it gives us a very, very basic one that we can very quickly manage and kind of eliminate all the different properties. Okay, so here is the template, and all I've done is I've created a very simple new template, and it's going to give you some guides. Now, you can work with this if you like and just change the different text and add an image, go through this, but I think most of us will want to have a little bit more customized feel, okay, for our designs. So let's just kind of quickly go through what we're looking at. So here you can see the top banner. Now this banner is going to, it looks like this is the whole thing, but if you do click on here, you can actually see the grid lines and showing you what the actual structure is. So when you see this, you're going to see that it seems to appear like it's running from full length horizontally, but the actual area that we're dealing with is in these grid lines. Okay, I'm going to hide that. And that's important when we get into some of the settings where we're trying to control the background of the content versus just simply the background. Here is, and you can see all of these, just like the name would suggest, are all one column, okay, from right to left. Here is an image, okay, and then we've got text, we've got a button. Now, all of you guys are familiar with the button because the email that went out to you all, and this is kind of a nice whimsical little point here where we've had 80 people register for this webinar, and we only sent two emails to all of you starting 2 days ago, okay? And every one of you guys consumed the information that we sent out, and we had a terrific response to it. So all of the features that we'll be covering, okay, were used in the email that solicited your interest. So you'll get to see all of that in action. The button, and then you've got the social media bar. We'll get into that later. And then, of course, because it's a new template, it auto-generates your unsubscribe information. If you try to create something without this, you won't be able to send it in the end. So it's nice to know that if you just create a new template, this will automatically be inserted and merge in your appropriate information. Okay? So the other thing that I wanted to cover is clicking over here on actions, clicking on preview. Now, as we build this, we're going to want to see what it looks like, okay? So in this, I can click on preview, and I can see what it's going to look like in desktop mode. If I want to see what it's going to look like in mobile mode, I click here. So as you can see, it's immediately responsive. It stacks very nicely, word wraps as needed, and it centers itself quite well. And you can see here how it displays all the way down. Okay, so very, very good presentation within that mode. And we just simply click on cancel, and then we're good to go. Okay, now we've covered all of that. Preview, show structure, and then the action menu options. Now we're actually in the editor now, so I just want to show the different actions. So we got, we're not going to cover all of these, but what's nice to know is that if you do build something that, let's say it's a template that you want to use in various different iterations for different purposes, you can create it, do a save as copy. As you are developing it, you can also do a send test. This is very, very effective and just sends out immediately. You don't have to put out anything else. And then you can see how it looks like in your email, not just from the preview mode, but also from a send. Okay, delete's fairly self-explanatory. Restore email. This actually is something that I learned quite a painful lesson on, where I was going in, this was a number of months ago and it's been fixed since then, but I was going in, I was designing the template on one computer and then going to another one and finding when I opened it up, I wasn't seeing my most current version and thought that I was losing data. When I clicked on restore email, it actually showed me all the different iterations with timestamps, and I was able to very, very quickly select the most current one and find all of the changes that I'd made. Okay, switch to WYSIWYG. Big warning on this, no going back. If you select switch to WYSIWYG, then you're staying in WYSIWYG, and in most likelihood, you'll find it uncomfortable enough that you'll probably blow it up and start again from scratch. Create campaign, we're going to get to that later, and then return is self-evident. Okay? Now, let's go to the tabs. Now, here's the template, and here's our tabs. Now, we're going to start with the content. This is fairly self-explanatory. You're going to see little buttons here, and you're basically just going to drag and drop each one of them as needed. Text is precisely that. Each one of these boxes here are text boxes. Images as well, self-explanatory. This is an image. Okay, buttons, you can see this, and you can drag them and drop them as needed. Dividers are sometimes useful if you've got a lot of text and you want to put a little divider spacer in there. Social media is this bar here. Okay, and we'll get into that. HTML, this is for putting in raw HTML code. We're not going to be covering that today. Quite frankly, we would need to spend a lot more time than we've got. But that's useful if you've got something provided from a third-party provider that designs something. You can actually insert that in, and that may be a special form or something that isn't reproducible here. And then again, video is self-explanatory, and you saw here in the demo, or in here, we actually inserted in a video, okay? Which is nice because people can see it and start playing it immediately when they open up the email, okay? So let's actually, now we've got the design, let's start going through the different sections. Now, one of the things that you can see from this newsletter is that I've got it's very clear it's a gray background and I've got a white foreground, okay? So I want the white foreground to be very clear so that no matter what text I'm using, whether it's orange or black or bolded or unbolded, it's all very clear. So I like to have the forefront, the content section as it's called, to be in white, and then to have a gray or some other color as background to illustrate, to further create a contrast. Okay, so let's see how we can do it, because right now the default design is to have it all the way across. So here we can see the second that we select it. You see here, when I select over here, it gives me options on the content. But if I select over here, it's giving me options for the entire row. And every single time that I select on something, it's giving me contextual options here that are relevant to what I've selected. So I've selected this, and now it's going to say the background color. Well, the background color I'm perfectly fine with because I like the background, but as I said, I want the content to be white. Okay, so now I've got that, and let's see what other options I've got. Okay, do not stack on mobile, don't recommend that. Row background image can be a little cluttery, I don't recommend that either. Transparent basically means no color, okay? And when you select that, you're going to see all the different options. Padding, I quite like this. If you select the more options are deselected, then it gives you the padding settings for all 4 directions, north, south, east, west. But if you select here, you're able to set additional paddings. Let's see what that looks like on the top. I'm reducing it, and you can see how I can increase it. These are very, very powerful for setting the exact distance from one section to the other. I know it doesn't seem terribly exciting, but when you're going for a particular precise look and spacing, this couldn't be more useful, okay? And then you've got here the border sections, and you can set the different spacing there, okay? There, okay. So now, I've set this to be white, and what I'm going to do is from top to bottom, I'm just going to go and repeat that process here. I like the background, except I want it to be a little bit darker to be consistent with that. And then I'm going to set, not transparent, because transparent, as you can see, will just pick up, and if I put in a PNG that is transparent, then it will appear gray from right to left. But I actually want to control here the content, so that I've got the same white look from the top to the bottom, okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I've selected the whole column. I'm going to select the same background color, and then I'm going to select, hold on, then I'm going to select the white, okay? And for one more time, what I'm going to do, because this one has a bar that runs the full length, not crazy about that look. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the background color here, okay? And I'm actually going to stick the foreground color to a slightly different look here, okay, just to kind of illustrate a bit of a footer look, okay? So with that, okay, we've gone through, you know, most of the general formatting, and now the standard text here, okay, we're just going to, okay, I want to actually put in a header. So what I'm going to do is I need to, as you saw before here, I had this header at the top. The header is nothing more than an image. So what I want to do is I want to select content, and as you can see, I'm going to simply select it, and I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to put it right up here. You see how it just automatically says drag it here, put it here, and now I'm going to, once I've got the image selected, I'm going to click on Browse, and it's going to automatically take me to my library of images, okay? And I've got quite a few. Okay. There it is. Now, a lot of people will assume that if you click on this, then, you know, it's going to insert it, but actually you need to click on this. This is going to give you a preview. So I'm just going to click on here, okay? Now, you'll see here, I'm going to click on more options, okay? I could select this, and got this section here. Okay, all side. Okay, right, left. Okay, so I've got this set here, and now I want to add the next one. See here, you can notice that this is a little crowded. First thing I want to do is when I click into the text, I want to center it. Okay, and then when I select this, I want to increase the top margin a little bit because it's a little encroaching there. Same thing with this. Now, if I want, you can see the text options are pretty much what you would expect. You've got the font, you've got the font size, the standard bold, italics, underscore, strike through, superscript, subscript. Okay, clear formatting, this is really useful. Okay, and then the standard justifications, special characters, your forgiveness button of undo if you've messed up something, and then you've got standard text options like a numbered list. You saw that on the images that I showed before, a bulleted list, text color, okay, and then the background color for the text. And then you've got right to left, and then here's useful when you want to insert a link. So it's just something like here, just as you would expect. you can set in a standard hyperlink, okay? All these kinds of text options are very, very familiar and very similar across all desktop publishing platforms, whether you're using Word or you're using a CMS or you're using any kind of designer. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because a lot of these are pretty standard. Some of the ones that I especially like, though, is the ability to say, underline link or not underline link. I may not want to have a bunch of underlines if I'm using a lot of hyperlinks in, say, a paragraph. I may not want to, have every single one of them underlined, or I may even want to just have a headline, the entire headline, hyperlinked, and not have an underline, because that would actually make look very unappealing. Okay. Now, the last option, whenever you select a hyperlink, is do you want to have a new window? And a new window, as opposed to just replacing what you're looking at, will actually pop up a new window. Now, that's not going to spend a lot of time on that because that's pretty standard with all of them. Okay. So those are the basic text options as you're editing. So anyone that's worked in Word is going to be familiar with these options. You are going to see things like special link, okay, where you can actually create the unsubscribe and then put in a option where it says, view this in a browser. And this is very cool. This will actually, if you wanted to put this at the top, okay, let's say I wanted to have that section here, I can then, obviously I've inserted it right in here amongst the text, but if I created a separate text box, I can drag that up here so it's at the top where people are accustomed to seeing it. So if they don't want to see it within their Outlook or whatever platform they're seeing it, they can click on that and that will open up a browser. So it ends up rendering a little bit closer to what you would like. Okay, just going to clear that. Okay, now for this, standard image boxes again, except this time I'm actually going to just say change image. And I'm just going to select, see here, it goes into preview if I select the image itself, or I'm going to click on here. Okay, now, just a quick go through on the options here. You can set the URL so it's hyperlinked, okay? But look how easy it is to adjust the size. Clear this. Now, word of caution, if you try to increase something way beyond what the native pixel size is, then obviously you're going to get a little pixelation, and it's going to seem a little granular here, a little faded, but it's nice to know you've got this kind of control, okay? Or if you just click on auto width, it's going to take the size that you've got, okay? You've got your alignment options here, dynamic image, skip past that, okay? Alternative text, the alt text, you may want to have a special alt tag for this so you can put that in. Image link, as I said, special links. And then here's where you get more into your padding again. So the moment that you click on this, you're able to set the padding on the top, on the bottom, and really control how it is positioned on the page. Okay? So with that, now we've gone through the content. Okay, so we've gone through that. Now what we're going to do is with this content, I am going to go back here. Actually, let's just add a divider. Okay, nice and simple. We've got the social media, so we don't need to add that in again. But what I want to do is I want to take this section, because it's all by default one column, and I want to click on rows, and you can see how simple this is. I can now actually just drag and drop in a section here. So I automatically have the option for 3 rows, okay? And then if I want to do it another one here, then I've got that option as well, okay? Now, this isn't a design class, what is aesthetically perfect, but obviously you want to stay away from, stacking it up too much like a pyramid. The one thing I will tell you is it does, when you are dragging this, okay, come on. You got to be careful about where you are where you're dragging, because you cannot drop it inside of, say, what is a predefined text box. Okay, let me just delete that and go back to rows. And let's say we'll take another one here. We'll take the 2. And let's say we try, you can see here how it's jumping to the different sections. It's not allowing me to put it under here because that's considered the same section. So what it will do is it will jump over all the individual segments, okay, and show you where you can drop it. So now I can put that in there, okay? Now, once we've got these, go back to content, and it's a matter of what we're going to drop in there. For the sake of simplicity, we're going to drag in an image here, drag in a button here, and then we're going to say, let's say image here, okay, and then we're going to say image and image. Now, let's say that you had 2 rows, okay? You had 6 buttons that you wanted to show people, or not buttons, sorry, images. So you had 6 images that you wanted, or just, 2 rows of 3 of similar type products, and you didn't want to have to recreate them. Watch all you've got to do. Boom. You just click on the little copy button right beside the delete button, and you immediately recreate it. Now, as you've seen me enter in sections, you've seen that some of the settings that I made earlier for the background and the foreground or the content have been ignored because I've added in new sections. So now all I've got to do is go in here and say, I would like that as the background. Okay, remember by default it's transparent, and then go here for white on the foreground, and it looks exactly like I would expect it. Now, an obvious time saver is that if you know you're going to make duplicate rows, let me just delete this. Then you set the background parameters first, and then the content. And then once those are set properly, then all you've got to do is duplicate, and then you don't have to set them for the second row. Okay? Let me just select a little graphic. Okay, insert here. And once you've got them here, see, you can duplicate it again. Okay, no, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so here. And we'll put in this box. Okay, and not going to repeat that process. Graphic is pretty slow. Okay, so now we've got these. I've got the different rows. Now I get down to the footer. Okay, not the footer, sorry, the social media. Let's take a look at the different options. When you select into here, not the row, when you select into here, you are going to see all your different social media options. Now, let's say that you don't have, say, a Twitter account. Very simple, just delete that, but you do have another type of account. So let's say you've got a YouTube, then you can enter in that and it will automatically generate it. Now, what you can see here is the icon selections. You can set different types of choices, different types of themes, okay, different colors, things like that, okay? So what you have to do, obviously, is you go and you get your individual social media links and you insert them in here. Now, one thing, just to control expectations, if you set them in one template, it will not populate across all of them. Okay, so any future templates are not going to pick up on the fact that you entered in your social media stuff. So this will have to be repeated. And unfortunately, it's not available in the settings to auto merge whenever you use this. Okay, which is kind of useful because one of the things that are going to be introduced next week with the fall launch event is the ability for consultants to build you templates from their personal Act instance and share them with you. So obviously, when they're doing that, it would be somewhat of a risk if they ended up inadvertently sharing all of their social media links if they were automatically mergeable. Okay, so then we'll just add one more, and okay, Telegram. Not a big fan of that one. Okay, and then blog. Okay, so you can put in your own blog there. So these are the standard ones, and you can add or remove them fairly easily. Okay, and as you can see, it's nothing more than adding an icon. And if you scroll down, you can set the icon spacing. Obviously, the wider you go, okay, I'm not really crazy about that, so we'll go with the default there. Okay, and then the padding, it's going to give you options just like I've showed you before. Okay, and those are your social media. So that's nice. Now let's click on here. Okay, you cannot, you can add in additional text here if you wanted. By default, it's going to insert in, but you may want to put in additional text, and this is just a standard text box. It automatically merges the information in. You can put in, you know, as I said, you can even put in the view in a browser, and then you've got additional merge tags, okay? And you can see all of them here. Okay, so these are all the fields that you've got available, okay? Same thing with the hyperlinks and all the other formatting. Okay, now in this case, it is not actually part of the content, so if I wanted to, I can just go with the same background and then click here for white, so it looks like it's a little bit more part of things. Okay, so let's go back here, got design, okay, and let's go through. We've got the social media, we've covered the dividers, video. Let's drop in a video, okay? And I'm going to drop in a video just below this, and you click on that video. Now there's two formats, YouTube and Vimeo. We actually subscribe to both, and it's nothing more than just copying and pasting in there, and that's as simple as it is. Most of them will give you, if you just go to a standard YouTube, just go to YouTube. Okay, and what you can do is just select an image and then right click. Come on.
I don't want to ruin the mood, but I am beside myself.
Right click and say,
now, can you see how much I'm shaking?
Copy video URL. And then what you do is you go in here and you paste it and then save. Let's see what it looks like. Boom, you've got that immediately. So now you've got video embedded in. So it's not, because it's a hyperlink and it's not adding extra heft to your email. So you don't have to worry about it being received on mobile devices, consuming people's data plan needlessly. It's all hyperlinked, just like the images. And that's another thing. The images are all, again, all hyperlinked. They're all stored in your online library, so you don't have to worry about them, coming through as some massive 4 or 5 meg email. Okay. And the nice thing is, because of that, if you make any changes, even after delivery, okay, then those images will be, the images will be reflected based on what your latest library file will be. Okay, let's go through some of the additional content. So we've covered video, we've covered we're not going to cover that, and then the social media. Okay, and again, let's see, text, images, and buttons we've covered. Now let's go into the buttons. Now the buttons are very, very self-explanatory. We are going to set in here www.keystroke.ca. Okay, we've got the ability to set the width, our auto width. Okay, that's rather ugly. Not a big fan of the brown. Okay, so I'll make that a little bit nicer. Yep. I can set the text color. I could set the alignment, which is obviously, in this case, we want to have it centered. And then once it's centered, that's a little nicer. Okay. Now, you would expect somewhere along here the place to actually change the text. But no, you actually just click right in here and start typing away. Please click here. Okay, and that's it. The settings aren't over here. And you click in again, and it's going to immediately surface this and continuing. So you've got line height. Okay, you can see you can control border radius, content padding. Again, whenever you deselect this, it gives you one setting for all four sides. And then border, okay. And let's say I want to have a border and I want to have an orange button. That's pretty awful, but I can actually set the border here. Okay, and the same thing with the padding options at the top. Now, I'm going to save this. And now I want to take a look at what it looks like in preview mode. Okay, that's desktop. Oh, you can see how it's all. See here, this is a bit of a concern. Maybe the padding is a little bit too much, so it's not responding well in there. And maybe I should also reduce the text because I want a button to look like a button, not a big blob. Okay, and you can see here on mobile, remember how I left a bunch of squares empty, and it doesn't care, it's ignoring them. Okay, so it's on this, it's all displaying perfectly. Now, you also remember how I had 2 rows of images, 2 rows, 3 columns wide. When I go to send it, it's going to collapse any of the empty content. Okay, so that's useful. Okay, now we want to get out of this. Okay, actually, Vic, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to switch it up since we're getting towards the end of the design section. And let's see if there's any design-related questions at this time.
Okay, if AMA window, if the template doesn't fit in one view, it's partially obscured by 3 control panels on the right. How can we change that?
Sorry, I'm not sure I'm getting that question.
Yeah, no, I'm not either here. In my AMA window, the template doesn't fit in one view. It's partially obscured by 3 control panels on the right.
The 3 control panels, like over here?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna request that the person who submitted that question can email Vic, and maybe with a bit more explanation, and we'll reply by email.
David, send me email vic@ktc.ca along with a screenshot as well. Then we can probably help you with that. All right. Okay. Is the library of images included with ACT?
There are some sample images, but most of the images that you saw, I have populated from my own library. And the nice thing is that anything that I add to the library, any of my other users on my account can also access. And similarly with theirs.
Oh, good. Okay. And are there links to public domain images sites included?
That's a good question. I remember hearing something about that. But I'd rather not say definitively since I don't remember if that was the case.
And another one, are templates available for specific events like Christmas, New Year? Holiday?
Yes, if you go, when you create a new template, when we did at the beginning, we create and we clicked on the new template, and the last option was where it said 1 column. When you go through there, there's a long selection of themes. So, we quickly looked at some. I haven't checked for every single season or occasion, but I would encourage you when you're making your first template, go to the last drop down after you create new template and select which one, see if there's any one that actually fits your purpose, because that'll save you a lot of time rather than doing what we did and create it from scratch.
Okay, and then next question is, I like to drag and drop by adding graphics, but isn't this a trigger for spam, regardless if the contact has opted in?
Anytime you use HTML, you're always increasing your risk over, just standard text. But, that's a bit of a trade-off there, because it's been proven that the more attractive email, the more, it increases its readability. So, there's not a perfect mix, because even if you've got a perfect email that has virtually no HTML compliant, there can be other variables like the sender's reputation, domain reputation, even the ESPs, the email service provider's reputation, that can also contribute to spam filtering as well. But we're in the business where if you just send out a standard Outlook like email, it's not likely to be as read as often or as quickly as something that is a little bit more eye-grabbing.
All right, good, thank you. And one more question: will the dark mode setting of an email client affect the viewing of the email?
No, it won't. The dark view in what I've seen, and I'm not going to pretend that I particularly like it, but the dark view actually will affect the environment, the list view of your emails, but the actual content of the email does not get affected. It's displayed just like it was before. All right, and then mercifully, you wouldn't want it to suddenly cloak and put some dark filter over all your content. I'm not sure that would be welcome.
And does this new program work with Vidyard? Vidyard?
I'm not sure what that is.
Okay, if you can email me, Monica, vic@kqc.ca. And
if Vidyard is like a third-party video or graphic source, then or if the question is specifically about this video source, the only two video sources that are currently supported are Vimeo and YouTube. So if you get content from another source, you might have to download it and then upload it to one of those two.
Yeah, and Cameron responded saying you can embed Vidyard videos, so it is possible.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
All right, that's it for these questions. There's questions in terms of where you'll be posting the videos afterwards, but we can.
Yeah, that'll be on our YouTube channel, and what we typically do is we include those in our newsletter, and we're expecting to have a newsletter out next month. Okay. Now, so we've gone through the basic making of a template. Okay, we're not focusing on making it especially pretty or looking like any previous ones, but what we want to do, and I'm just going to actually get rid of some of the extraneous stuff. Okay, and then just add one more box image so there's a little bit more balance. Let's add another act image there. Okay, and then save. Okay, and then remember, I wanted to reduce the size here. Okay, I found that the padding here was quite heavy, and saw this, and also found that its width, I put on auto width. That's a little restricting, and just reduce it there. You remember how that it turned into a box before in mobile view, so I was trying to correct that. And then here, I'm just going to delete the content and then do a little bit of centering. Okay, and then save. Okay, so imagine that you have just built this email and now you want to send it. One of the things that when we as a ACT consultant community initially struggled with was the amount of steps that we were first taught, and in the first iteration of this, to send a simple email. And our concerns on behalf of our customers was that the learning curve, the transition would be quite difficult. Okay. They've actually created a quick campaign option that makes the transition almost as simple as the previous one. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually set up, we're just going to create a quick send campaign. Now, what I'll do as well, instead here, I'm going to say that I want to send a test. Okay, and that's how quickly it gets sent. I've closed my Outlook here. Okay, and let's bring up my Outlook. And we can see here it being received, okay? This is something that, you know, there isn't a whole lot of continuity in terms of you know, content or anything like that, but something that went together pretty fast, pretty easily, okay? Obviously, I didn't work on making sure there was any color continuity or anything like that, but you can see how nicely it's centered here, and it will display, if I want to reduce it, okay, you can see here, displays quite nicely. Okay, now let's go back to this. Now, I want to send a campaign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to click on Create Campaign. Remember, switch to WYSIWYG, bad. So Create Campaign. Now, watch what I have to do. So the first thing is I've got to create campaign name. Now, this name is for internal purposes. This is for me being able to find it, okay, and being able to call it up again. So I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to call this webinar test, and then the subject line. If you try to skip past this, and when you go to send it, it will actually reject it, saying that you've got to have a subject line, okay? So I'm going to say, webinar test again. Now, the list. This is a fancy name just for your groups, okay? So I'm going to say the Keystroke Test Group. Now, remember I said at the beginning that there was something that you had to be mindful of when you're sending from, say, an RDB, a subscriber database versus the master? The reason is, if you make a lot of changes, let's say I'm on a subscriber copy of the database, and I make changes, I manually populate groups, or I make changes to contacts that populates them in a group that, you know, is in a group that I want to receive the newsletter. If I don't sync, then it won't go to those contacts. And the reason is, even if I create a group, and I've had people go crazy that they were super upset that they were out in the field, they wanted to send the newsletter, it may look and feel like you're working on this locally, but this is all live on the web. Okay, so all the changes that you're making are being saved on the SwiftPage server. So, and all the group information that it's pulling from is from the master database. Okay, so you've got to be really, really careful. If you create a new group and you don't sync, then it won't be on the master database, and it won't be on this pick list. Okay, so I'm going to just check. I'm going to go back to my master database here, and I'm going to go to my groups. I'm going to say Keystroke Test Group. Okay, and I can see it's just staff, and they're used to being spammed. Okay, so this is a safe group to send. I can check for my name here, and then all of these, some of these settings here are in the admin section, which we're not going to cover today. But now I'm going to click on Create. So now this is pretty much the main part of creating a simple campaign. So what this is doing is it's showing you the illustration of the overall workflow of your campaign. Well, you've created a template, you're setting it for instant release, so there's not much of a workflow here. So it's start, instant release email, here's the template, here's the end, okay? Couldn't be much simpler. So with this kind of visual illustration of the workflow, now we want to trigger the next step. Actions, and now we have to activate the campaign, okay? When I click on Activate, it's going to give me one last check option. Now, when I click on activate, it's going to make sure that all the compliancy requirements are there. So it's going to check that you've got a subject line, you've included an unsubscribe option here, you've got all the different options that you've got. So it's giving you a big check mark. If you see an X here, then it's going to give you the option to go back and edit it. Okay, and then up here is the campaign. So webinar status is draft, send on activation, sync enabled, false, who's it from, who's the display name, okay, who's it going to, and any exclusions if I wanted to use the exclusion option that was up here before, and then all I want to do is send the campaign here. Activate, it's done. Okay, that's it. Nothing more. So when you think about it, in the previous email programs that you had, Act eMarketing, SwiftPage eMarketing, you would design the template, okay, and you would have the option of, say, sending to a lookup. That doesn't exist anymore because it's going to be, it's not a local consideration. It's, you're working from groups that, as I said, are on the server. One other benefit, by the way, of working through the web is you're also working on the master. So any of the group, the contacts that are in the group or the groups themselves, that are going to be immediately available to you. Okay, but from a workflow standpoint, you created the template, you clicked on actions, and then you clicked on create campaign. You then clicked on activate, and then activate again. That's it. So there's probably 2 more mouse clicks, maybe 1 more than you did in previous programs, but now you're able to go in much more easily, create an attractive looking template, send it out to a targeted group, okay? And now that it's sent, let's see what I can do here. So let's say campaign dashboard. Okay, I can see here, I've got 36 people, 36 emails sent. Okay, it hasn't given me any stats yet. Okay, but I can, normally when it gets refreshed, I'm going to get delivery information, and this is where you're going to see if there's any bounces. You can get reports on the bounces, unsubscribes. So these are people that put it into junk or actually clicked on unsubscribe. Complaints. This is something you've got to be very, very conscious of, because any complaints can lead to your account being flagged. Now I'm going to pause for a moment and just back up, because we didn't really cover the actual distribution part of sending an email, which is kind of implied when you're sending a campaign. It is extremely important to scrub your list, okay? And I'm not just saying that because no one likes bounces. You're really not going to like bounces if they actually go above a certain threshold, which in most ESPs cases is 5%. If you're consistently above 5% bounce rate, you're going to get an email from SwiftPage basically saying, scrub your list, make sure that that these are verified emails, and make sure that the next time that you send, you exclude some of the bounces. Now, if you continue to do that, it's going to escalate in warning up to and including your account being suspended. Now, none of these marketing automation programs are cheap. Okay, Act is actually on the lower end of the cost spectrum, with services like Pardot costing like thousands of dollars a month. If your account is suspended and it cannot, like, let's say you're a repeat offender and it goes from being suspended to deactivated, you will not get a refund. So be very, very conscious. There are, on our website, we've got sections for, how to ramp up your list, how to scrub your list. We have a program called the Opt-in Manager. Any people that subscribe through us are entitled to a certain trial period. If you subscribe to the Professional, you get 3 months. If you subscribe to Premier, you get 6 months, and you subscribe to the Ultimate, then you get 12 months. And what that will allow you to do is send out, an email, a standard text-based email, requesting consent to send it. And then when they click on the link to provide consent, the users will be faced with a big green button for yes, red button for no, and whatever they select, all of that information will be synced back to your database, and each of the contacts will be updated accordingly. So you can get thousands and thousands of people updated in your database faster than any other way possible. Also, the opt-in manager has a Brite Verify integration. So if you go to Brite, B-R-I-T-E, verify.com, and there's zero bounce, there's all kinds of different services that allow you to scrub. But if you go at it from a two-pronged attack, where you're going from consent, which is obviously going to include a verification of email, but also to the scrubbing of the list, where you're getting a verification. So the email will typically come back as valid, will come back as invalid, or will come back as wildcard, where it's accepting any variation of an email at a particular domain. Okay, so once you scrub your list, get rid of all the invalid ones, and then include your opt-ins, you're going to end up with a very, very good list that won't risk your account ever being in jeopardy. Okay, so let's pause. We've got 6 minutes left and open it up for questions.
What is the max number of emails that you can send in one day? I think that's dependent on your level of
subscription. Yeah, it is depending on your account. So currently it's 10,000 for professional. It's not a daily limit. It's a monthly limit. Okay, and previously this has gone through several iterations. SwiftPage eMarketing had a send limit per month. Okay, and then Acti Marketing had an unlimited send limit, but it had a fixed number of contacts, so you can send the same contact a number of, countless number of times. With the Act Marketing Automation, it's gone back to the original one, where it's actually counting the number of sends. Now, if you have one user or 20 users, it doesn't change the email threshold. So the professional tier will be limited to 10,000 sends. Doesn't matter how many people are using the service within your account. And then the premier, okay, the next tier is 50,000, and then it's 50,000, and then 100,000 for the ultimate tier.
All right, thank you. And then, are there ways to become unsuspended, or is this forever?
Yeah, so what happens is, we actually had a customer that did get suspended. They sent out an email that was to a list that hadn't been scrubbed in like 8 years, and he had an astonishing 97% bounce rate. Not acceptance rates, bounce rate. So this was an absolutely terrible list. And we actually, as a customer, we gave him the opt-in manager so he can start scrubbing. But he got suspended. He got suspended immediately. In fact, it was so bad, they actually hit a bunch of spam traps and got the SwiftPage blacklisted. Okay, which affected all accounts. Now, they have many, many different servers, but even one of them affects a lot of servers. So this guy got blacklisted immediately, and he had to provide proof that he had scrubbed his list, used our tools, and wasn't going to send it out to the same list again. And then I think after 2 or 3 weeks, he got let back in again. Good question.
All right. Will all users have access to the marketing automation tool, or administrator? Very good question. By default, the administrator will, because the administrator has all permissions. But when you go into here, and let's say manage users, and let's say I click on here and edit user, here's where I can say eMarketing and AMA, and I basically move them over here. I can give them, the assets access, campaigns, whichever, and then you assign those permissions, and then those people will have access to AMA. If they don't have these permissions assigned to them, then they won't get it. As I said, I believe the managers get it by default. Standard users do not, administrators do. Okay, so if someone's an administrator, you can't revoke any permissions, and manager, there's only a select amount that you can revoke. But standard, I always recommend setting people as a standard, and that way you've got the maximum configurable options in terms of the security permissions. All right, thank you. Will campaigns use variable fields in subject and in content, such as contact and company name?
So what we didn't do is we didn't show the merging. Okay, the merging of the fields. You saw some of the options. I did select, a merge field in there. There is not an option to merge into the subject line, but pretty much anywhere else it can. Now, one of the things to be mindful of if you are creating a template, okay, you create a template, you have to then add it to a campaign. So that whole quick campaign method, you're actually going to bypass a lot of merge field options. Okay, I'm hoping in time that they remedy that, but the first few iterations, you were only able to add in merge fields once you created a campaign and added the template to it. But yes, merging in contact fields is available for I think almost all of the fields, all the compatible fields.
All right, and one more question. Typically, are there any display issues among Outlook, Gmail, iOS, or Android?
We haven't run across a whole lot of thickiness with this. I mean, I've got to tell you that we've done a lot of email publishing with some of our own products, and it can be a real headache to account for, and this is a really good question, to account for the different receiver formats, whether it is Hotmail or Gmail or that, or Outlook, because there can be massive distortions from one format in which it's consumed versus another. I have not seen a whole lot of discrepancies with this platform, Act Marketing Automation. Remember, this was an extremely sophisticated application and service before SwiftPage bought it. So, this was one of the things that they obviously had to master, and having developed similar but much simpler type programs, I can tell you, they've nailed it, because I haven't run across a whole lot of platforms that are incompatible with it.
Okay, and last question, and then I think it's time's up. Is there a hot list provided after a campaign goes out?
Yeah, hot lists are kind of a thing of the past. Okay, in the old e-marketing world, what we would do is we would focus on who clicked it or who double clicked it, and things like that. That's kind of an e-marketing consideration. With marketing automation, what you do is, the hot list requires you to manually go through, sift through a list of responses, or what was called scoring. With automation, you actually build the workflow that triggers automatically based on the response type. So we're not really in a world anymore where we have to go through and check the score sheet. It's actually, it's a much more automated with marketing automation. So as much as I was trying to demonstrate how you can transition seamlessly from email marketing to marketing automation, certainly on the send standpoint, but some of the technology and even philosophy behind email marketing versus marketing automation is very, very different. So, some of those features won't exist in marketing automation.
Okay, and the last question, and then this will be the last one. Does the history get recorded to the Act contact?
Yes, it does. Under the campaigns tab.
Excellent.
Not under the history as you would expect it, as some of the old programs did, but under the campaigns tab, it gets recorded there.
All right. That's it for the time. So thank you very much, Ken, for a great webinar. And if you do have any questions, you can email me, vic@kqc.ca. And if I don't know the answer, I can probably get it for you. And with that, look for our YouTube channel. Just search for Keystroke Quality Computing, and you can find us on YouTube. And we will have
We've got the participants list on this from this one, right?
Yes, we do. Yep.
Okay, so we've got the email list. We'll make sure that we send it around to everyone that registered. The recorded link, it may take a day or so to get it done, because it does take a long time to get an hour-long video done. But once it's done, we'll send it around. So even if you registered but weren't able to attend, it'll be available to you. And then, like always, we'll include it in the next newsletter.
Great. Thank you very much, Ken. Thanks, everyone, for attending, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Have a good day, everyone.